We're going to continue with lesson 9.1 and we'll keep talking about quartiles, and we're going to introduce something new called the interquartile range. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to look at this diagram here to the right. Now, this represents the data from a standardized test score. And these three numbers down here, the 380, 466, and 547, they represent the quartiles. So this is quartile 1, quartile 2, and this is quartile 3. And as we talked yesterday, when we have these three quartiles, they break the data up into 4 groups. And as you can see, we have 4 groups here: the yellow, the green, the pink, and the purple. And each one of those groups represents 25% of the data. So when you're asked to interpret the graph or the data or a quartile, you can just make some statements like this. So one statement could be 25% of the students scored less than or equal to 380. So here's 380. I'm going to go ahead and put a little mark here to represent 380. Now, as you can see, that if you look at scores that are less than 380, that covers 25% of the students. So we could say 25% of the students scored less than or equal to 380. On the flip side, if we look to the right of 380, this represents people who scored above 380. So we could say that 75% scored greater than or equal to 380. Because again, as you can see from this 380, there are 3 sections of the diagram, and each section is 25%. All right? You could say 50% of the students scored less than 466. Well, here's 466. And as you can see, there's 50% are less than 466 or equal to it, and there's 50% that are greater than or equal to. So when you're asked to interpret something, let's say, for example, I said interpret quartile 3, you can say that 75% of the students scored less than or equal to 547, or you could say 25% of the students scored greater than or equal to 547. The next thing I want to talk about is something called interquartile range. So sometimes people are interested in the middle 50% of a set of data values. Consider the middle 50% of the standardized math scores described earlier. So again, the interquartile range is often just said as IQR. All right. So the interquartile range is written right here. So it says over here, if you look on the right, it says the interquartile range is often used to describe a data set that includes outliers. And outliers are values that are much less or much greater than the rest of the values in a set. In sets that include outliers, the interquartile range often gives a better idea of both the center of the set and its typical values because it ignores the extremes. So to find the interquartile range, what we're going to do is we're going to do Q3 minus Q1. Now Q3 in this case is 547, and we're going to subtract 380 from there. That's Q1. All right, so we're going to wind up with 167. So in this case, the interquartile range is 167. All right. Now, so let's just say, just talk about outliers for a second. Let's just say that I give a test to a number of people, and here are the scores: 82, 84, 73, 81, 68, 74, 86, 89. So those are all relatively close together. Now let's say I included somebody took the test and got a 100, and another person took it and got a 41. You might consider that this is the main group right here. These right here are kind of the main group, and these two over here would probably be the outliers because they're a good distance away from the other parts. So if I said to you, what's the range of this? Well, the range is the greatest number minus the smallest number, so that's 100 minus 41. So the range would be 59. So, but we really wouldn't want to include them because, again, they're extreme. They're not like the others. So really, I'm interested in this data right here. Okay, so that's where the IQR comes into play. So what I want to do here, it says 15 people were surveyed to find out how many hours they sleep every day. The findings were as follows. So here we have all the amount of time that people slept. What I want to do is I want to find the quartiles and the interquartile range, and then I want to talk about interpreting them. So here we go. So the first thing to find the mean, the quartile 2, I'm sorry, we're going to have to find a middle number. So there's 15 people here, so that means I'm going to count up 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the next one is the median, so Q2. So again, I always do that since there's 15 numbers. I take one away to make it even. That's 14. I cut that in half at 7. So I just count up 7 and then add back that one that I missed and that I took away, and that gives us the median. So now so Q2 is 8. Now if you remember, Q1 is the median of the lower half. So over here we have 7 numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So to find the quartile here, the quartile 1, the median here, that's going to be this 7 right here. All right, so Q1 is 7. Now Q3 is the median of the upper section of the data, and again we have 7 numbers up here, so we choose the one in the middle, and that's going to be 9.5. All right, so Q3 is 9.5. Now to find the IQR, remember we do Q3 minus Q1. So in this case we're doing 9.5 minus 7, which is 2.5. So the IQR is 2.5. So now if we go back to sort of interpreting these and just kind of saying some facts about them, discussing the data, we could say, now remember, each one of these sections here represents 25% of the data. So I could say if I wanted to, this is Q1, obviously, this is Q2, and this is Q3. So I could say that 75% of the people in the study slept 9.5 hours or less. So here's my 9.5. And if I look at all these people this way, going in this direction, there's 3 sections, and each section is 25%. So I could say 75% slept 9.5 hours or less, or I could say 25% slept 9.5 hours or more. Now, talking about the interquartile range, again, the interquartile range of the IQR is 2.5. So it says here you can interpret the interquartile range as saying that about 50% of the people in the study sleep from 7 to 9.5 hours each day. So now remember, these quartiles, so from quartile 1 right here to quartile 2, this represents 50% of the data. So there's 2 sections, and again, each section is 25%. This is 25%, this is 25%. So altogether, this represents 50%. So about 50% of the people in the study sleep from 7 to 9.5 hours a day. I can also say the difference in the number of hours and the number of sleeping hours among the middle 50% of the people is at most 2.5 hours. So the difference between this middle 50% is at most 2.5 hours. Again, all I did was took Q3 minus Q1 to get that 2.5. So this is taken right from the book. So what I want to do is I want to look at another question that was taken right from the book. And so if it asks you to interpret the IQR, you can use this as a guide. So if we look here, let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just use this from before. Okay, now remember this data right here is from standardized test scores. So if I ask you to interpret this, so from what we just read about the sleeping study, it said you can interpret the interquartile range as saying that about 50% of the people in the study sleep from 7 to 9.5 hours each day. So looking at this example, you could say about 50% of the students score between 380 and 547 on the standardized test. Or you could say, now again using this example, the difference in the number of sleeping hours among the middle 50% of the people is at most 2.5 hours. Using this example, of the standardized test score, you could say the difference in the test scores among the middle 50% of the students is at most 167. So that's just how they're showing you how to interpret the interquartile range. That's it.